The dying star cast its ruddy light across the crystalline spires of a starry prime, painting the ancient city in hues of rust and amber. Commander Finn Graves stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Horizon, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the alien world below. After 20 years of service to Earth's military forces, he had seen dozens of planets, but none carried the weight of extinction quite like this one. Commander Graves. Admiral Vega's voice crackled through the communication panel, heavy with the authority that came from decades of political maneuvering. You understand the importance of this mission. Finn's jaw tightened. I understand that 17 other suitors have failed. Those were mere politicians and dignitaries. Vega replied dismissively. You're different. You're Earth's champion, our most decorated soldier. The Estari respect strength. The word suitor left a bitter taste in Finn's mouth. He had commanded fleets, survived the Centauri conflicts, and earned more medals than he could count. Yet here he was, reduced to playing matchmaker for a dying species. The Estari possessed technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel. Their quantum jump drives could fold space itself. Earth needed that technology, and the price was simple. When the heart of Lady Solar, the last female of her species. Remember, Vega continued, this isn't just about romance. It's about securing humanity's future among the stars. The Estari won't share their technology unless Solar accepts a mate and produces an heir. Without her cooperation, their entire civilization dies with her. Finn watched as the planet's 3 moons aligned in the amber sky, a phenomenon that occurred only once every decade. And if she refuses me like all the others? Then we'll have to explore alternative methods of acquisition. The implications hung heavy in the recycled air of the ship. Finn had always followed orders, but something about this mission felt different. Wrong somehow. As the Horizon descended through a starry prime's atmosphere, Finn studied the briefing files once more. Lady Solar, born Lyra Solastari, was the last surviving female of a species that had once numbered in the billions. A viral plague, engineered by their ancient enemies, had targeted the Astari's unique reproductive biology, leaving only males and a single female alive. She was 28 Earth years old, brilliant by all accounts, and had systematically rejected every suitor presented to her over the past 5 years. The landing platform materialized beneath them, a marvel of bioorganic engineering that seemed to grow from the planet's surface like a massive flower. Estari guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention, their elongated forms draped in robes that shimmered with captured starlight. As Finn disembarked, he noticed how their skin had a subtle luminescence, as if they carried fragments of their dying sun within their very cells. The greeting party was led by an elderly Estari whose skin patterns pulsed with authority. Commander Graves of Earth, he intoned, his voice carrying harmonics the human vocal cords could never produce. I am High Elder Thaxis. We welcome you to Astari Prime, though I confess, our hope grows thin. Finn inclined his head respectfully. I appreciate your honesty, Elder. I'm not here to waste anyone's time with false promises. Thaxis studied him with eyes that held the weight of centuries. Perhaps that will serve you better than the flowery words of your predecessors. Lady Solar awaits in the Crystal Garden. She has limited patience for this process. They walked through corridors that seemed carved from living light, the architecture flowing in impossible curves that defied human understanding of physics. Finn's military training kicked in automatically, mapping exits and defensive positions, until he caught himself and forced his mind back to the diplomatic mission at hand. The Crystal Garden was a wonder that made even Finn's battle-hardened sensibilities pause. Translucent trees grew from pools of liquid mercury, their branches supporting fruits that glowed like captured stars. The air itself seemed to sing with a frequency just beyond human hearing. And at the garden's heart, seated on a throne that appeared to be grown rather than built, was Lady Solar. She was nothing like the holovids had depicted. The images had captured her beauty, but missed her presence entirely. Her skin held the same inner light as her people, but in her, it was intensified as if she truly was the last repository of their son's fire. Her eyes, when they fixed on Finn, held an intelligence that seemed to see through every pretense, every diplomatic facade. "So," she said, her voice carrying the same harmonic richness as the elders, but with an edge of barely contained anger, "Earth sends its warrior. Tell me, Commander Graves, did they brief you on the proper courtship rituals? The 17 sacred dances? The poems of binding that must be recited in old Astari?" Finn stepped forward, ignoring the sharp intake of breath from the attendants. "No, Lady Solar. They briefed me on your quantum drive specifications and the strategic importance of an alliance. They told me about duty and necessity and the survival of species. They didn't tell me anything about who you actually are." For the first time since his arrival, Finn saw surprise flicker across her features. "And you find that insufficient?" "I find it insulting," Finn replied bluntly. "To both of us. You're not a prize to be won or a treaty to be negotiated. You're a person facing an impossible situation. I'm tired of people pretending otherwise." The garden fell silent except for the subtle chiming of the crystal trees. Solar rose from her throne, her movements fluid as liquid starlight. 17 suitors, she said softly, and you're the first to acknowledge that I might have feelings about being the last hope of my species. Tell me, Commander, why should I believe you're any different from the others? "I'm not asking you to believe anything," Finn said. "I'm not even asking you to consider me as a suitor." The word still felt wrong. "I'm just asking for the chance to understand what you're going through. No agenda, no hidden recordings, no diplomatic doublespeak." Solar circled him slowly, her robes trailing light across the garden floor. "The others came with gifts. Prince Cardex of the Rigel Coalition offered me a fleet. The vegan ambassador promised to terraform a new world for my people. What do you offer, Commander Graves?" "Nothing," Finn said simply. "Except maybe the truth that this situation is as uncomfortable for me as it is for you. I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. I've spent my life following orders, and now I'm being ordered to somehow convince you to save your species by choosing me. It's absurd." A laugh escaped Solar's lips, surprising them both. It was a sound like crystal bells in a summer breeze. "Absurd. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Do you know what the worst part is, Commander? Tell me. Everyone speaks of saving my species, but no one asks if I want to be saved. What if I choose to let the Astari fade into history? What if I refuse to bear the weight of an entire civilization's future on my shoulders, or in my womb?" The raw honesty in her voice struck Finn like a physical blow. He had been prepared for hostility, for diplomatic games, even for seduction attempts. He hadn't been prepared for this. A woman carrying a burden that would break most beings. "Then that would be your choice," Finn said quietly. "And anyone who tries to take that choice from you is no better than the enemies who engineered your people's destruction." Solar stopped her circling, facing him directly. "The High Council would have you executed for such heresy." "Probably, but it wouldn't make it less true." They stood in silence for a long moment, the garden's ethereal light playing across their faces. Finally, Solar spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Would you like to see the real Astari Prime, Commander? Not the diplomatic facades and ceremonial spaces, but what remains of my world? I would be honored." As they left the Crystal Garden, Finn caught a glimpse of movement in the shadows, security monitors, no doubt, recording every word. He thought of Admiral Vega's orders, of his secret mission parameters hidden within his official briefing. The technology scanners integrated into his dress uniform were already mapping the palace's energy signatures, as they had been programmed to do. But for the first time in his military career, Finn found himself hoping the mission would fail. The private transport carried them beyond the palace districts into the older sections of the city. Here, the eternal twilight of the dying sun cast longer shadows, and the buildings showed their age in ways that made Finn's chest tighten. Entire districts stood empty, their bioluminescent walls fading to gray. "My people once numbered in the billions," Solar said, her hand pressed against the transport's window. "These streets were filled with life, with children's laughter, with the sounds of a thriving civilization. Now, only the ghosts remained. They passed through market squares where holographic merchants still enacted their eternal sales pitches to empty air. Automated systems maintained the illusion of life, but the reality was stark, a city dying by degrees. How many Astari remain? Finn asked. 712 males, Solar replied. Most are elderly. The plague was designed to target our reproductive systems first, then our immune systems. The females died quickly. The males, they linger. They stopped at a memorial plaza where thousands of light sculptures commemorated the dead. Each one was unique, a glowing representation of an individual life lost. Solar stepped out of the transport and walked among them, her fingers trailing through holographic faces that smiled at her touch. "This is my aunt," she said, stopping before one sculpture. "And these are my sisters, my mother, my grandmothers, every female friend I ever had. They all died within 6 months." Finn stood beside her, silent. What words could possibly matter in the face of such loss? "The other suitors would tour this memorial and speak of duty," Solar continued. "They'd remind me that I carry the genetic legacy of all these women, that it's my responsibility to ensure their deaths weren't in vain. As if I could forget, as if I don't see their faces every time I close my eyes." "I'm sorry," Finn said simply. Solar turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Are you? Or is this empathy another tactic from Earth's diplomatic playbook?" Instead of answering directly, Finn pulled back his sleeve, revealing a series of scars that ran from wrist to elbow. "The Battle of New Singapore. I lost my entire unit. 43 soldiers under my command, and I was the only survivor. Command called me a hero, said I'd upheld Earth's finest traditions. But all I could think about was how I'd trade every medal they gave me to hear just one of those voices again." Solar studied the scars, then looked up at his face. "Survivor's guilt. They have treatments for that now. I know. I've refused them all, because forgetting them would be worse than remembering. Because someone needs to carry their stories forward, even if it hurts." For the first time since they'd met, Solar's defensive walls seemed to crack. "Yes," she whispered. "Exactly that." They spent the rest of the day touring the empty city. Solar showed him schools where automated teachers still gave lessons to absent students, hospitals where medical AIs waited for patients who would never come, homes where family portraits still smile from walls that would never again hear children's laughter. As the dying sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, a process that took nearly 6 hours on a starry prime, Solar led Finn to an observation tower at the city's edge. From here, they could see the vast plains that stretched to the planet's terminator line, where eternal sunset met eternal night. "This is where I come to think," Solar said, settling onto a bench that faced the dying light. "To remember what we were, and to wonder what we might become." Finn sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "What do you see when you look out there?" "Endings," she replied. "My son will die within my lifetime, even if I live to see 200 years, as some of my people do. The planet will freeze. The cities will crumble. Everything we built will be lost to the dark. Unless you leave." Solar laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Yes, unless I leave. Unless I accept one of these suitors and bear children on some foreign world. Unless I become a breeding vessel for the continuation of Astari genes." She spat the words like poison. "Tell me, Commander, would you accept such a fate? To be valued only for your reproductive potential? To have your worth measured solely by your ability to produce offspring?" "No," Finn admitted. "I wouldn't. And yet that's what everyone expects of me. Even my own people. Especially my own people. Do you know what Elder Thaxis told me after the 15th suitor left? He said I was being selfish. That my personal feelings were less important than our species' survival." "Maybe he's right," Finn said carefully. "Maybe the needs of the many do outweigh the needs of the few. But that doesn't mean your needs don't matter at all. It doesn't mean you should be forced into anything." Solar turned to face him fully. "Then what would you have me do?" Finn was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun paint the sky in impossible colors. "I think," he said finally, "that you need to decide what you can live with. Not what your people need, Not what the galaxy expects, but what you can face in the mirror each morning. And whatever you decide, that has to be enough. Even if I choose extinction, even then, they sat in silence as the sun crept lower, its bloated red disk seeming to pulse with each passing moment. Finn found himself wondering about Earth's sun, still bright and yellow in the sky, still billions of years from its own death. How would humanity face its own ending when the time came? You're not what I expected, Solar said suddenly. Neither are you. The others, they saw me as a prize, a conquest, the last female of a dying race. What an exotic addition to their dynastic lines. Prince Cardex actually told me our children would be exhibited in the Royal Xenological Gardens, as if they were rare animals to be displayed. Finn felt his hands clench into fists. That's monstrous. Isn't that what all of this is about? Preserving the Estari like specimens in a zoo. Maybe that's what they think, Finn said, but that's not what I see when I look at you. And what do you see, Commander? Finn chose his words carefully. I see someone who's been turned into a symbol against her will. Someone who's been denied the simple right to be a person first and a last survivor second. I see strength that has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with character. Solar's expression softened slightly. Pretty words, but you're still here as Earth's champion. You still have orders to follow. Yes, Finn admitted. I do. Admiral Vega expects me to secure an alliance, to gain access to your technology, to accomplish what 17 others couldn't. He paused, then made a decision that would change everything. Would you like to know what my real orders are? Solar's eyes widened slightly. You would betray Earth's confidence. I think Earth has already betrayed both of us by reducing this to a transaction. You deserve to know the truth. Taking a deep breath, Finn pulled out his secure datapad and accessed the classified mission parameters. He held it out to Solar, letting her read Admiral Vega's actual instructions. Her face went pale as she scrolled through the files. Covert recording devices, technology scanners, contingency plans for acquisition of assets if diplomatic measures fail. She looked up at him, anger flashing in her eyes. They sent you to steal from us. If I couldn't convince you to cooperate, yes. The scanners are already active. They've been mapping your palace's energy signatures since I arrived. And you're telling me this because you deserve better. Because this whole situation is wrong. Because I'm tired of following orders that go against everything I believe in. Solar stood abruptly, pacing to the observation deck's railing. Do you understand what you just done? My people's security protocols demand that I report this immediately. You'll be expelled from Astari Prime, court-martialed when you return to Earth. I know. Your career will be over. Everything you've worked for gone. I know. She spun to face him. Then why? Finn stood as well, meeting her gaze steadily. Because 20 years ago, I took an oath to protect humanity. Not to serve its governments or advance its agendas, but to protect people. Human people, alien people, all people. And right now, the person most in need of protection is you from my own government. The silence stretched between them, charged with possibilities. Finally, Solar spoke, her voice barely audible above the wind. The High Council meets tomorrow to discuss my situation. They're growing impatient. Some have suggested that if I won't choose, a choice should be made for me. Finn felt a cold chill run down his spine. Forced marriage. They use prettier words. Arranged alliance. Guided selection. But yes, essentially they want to override my autonomy for the greater good. She laughed bitterly. 18 suitors now, counting you. They say if I refuse again, they'll invoke the emergency propagation protocols, which are ancient laws from our colonial period. They allow the council to assign mates in times of species crisis. It hasn't been used in over 1,000 years, but she shrugged helplessly. That's barbaric. That's survival, according to them. Solar turned back to the dying sun. I have one more day of freedom, Commander. One more day before I become nothing more than a vessel for Estari continuity. Unless. She didn't finish the thought, but Finn heard it anyway. Unless she made a choice first. Unless she selected someone of her own, well, before that choice was stolen from her. I won't be your escape route, Finn said quietly. If you choose someone, anyone, it has to be for the right reasons. And what would those reasons be? I don't know. Trust? Respect? The possibility of actual partnership instead of glorified captivity? Or maybe just the desire despite everyone who thinks they can decide your fate for you. Despite everything, Solar smiled. You really aren't like the others, are you? I try not to be. As the last sliver of sun disappeared below the horizon, plunging the world into the perpetual twilight that served as a starry prime's night, Solar made a decision. Would you join me for dinner, Commander? Not as a suitor, not as Earth champion, but as a friend? I find myself in short supply of those lately. I would be honored. They dined in Solar's private chambers, a space refreshingly free of ceremonial trappings. The walls were covered with personal mementos, hollow captures of family, artifact from scientific expeditions, books in languages Finn couldn't identify. It was the room of a person, not a symbol. Over a meal of traditional Astari cuisine, which Finn found surprisingly palatable despite its bioluminescent properties, they talked. Not about alliances or species survival or technological exchanges, but about themselves. Finn learned that Solar had trained as a xenobiologist before the plague, that she loved ancient poetry and had once dreamed of exploring uncharted systems. Solar learned about Finn's childhood on Mars, his sister who painted nebulae, his secret fondness for pre-contact Earth literature. You know what the strangest part is? Solar said, refilling their glasses with fermented starfruit wine. In another life, without all of this weighing on us, we might have actually been friends. Who says we can't be now? Politics, duty, the imminent extinction of my species. Take your pick. Finn raised his glass. To impossible friendships in impossible situations. Solar clinked her glass against his. To the few who see people instead of symbols. As the evening wore on, Finn found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. Solar was brilliant, funny, and devastatingly honest. She challenged his assumptions, made him laugh, and somehow made him forget that the fate of civilizations hung in the balance around them. It was past midnight when Solar's communication array chimed urgently. Her expression darkened as she read the message. What is it? Finn asked. The High Council has called an emergency session. They're voting on the emergency propagation protocols tonight, not tomorrow. She looked up at him, fear flickering in her eyes. Someone leaked your presence here. They know about Earth's real intentions. Finn stood immediately. We need to go to the council. You need to address them directly. It won't matter. Counselor Vex has been advocating for the protocols for months. He has the votes. By morning, I'll be legally bound to accept his choice of mate. Who? His own son. A political alliance that would cement his family's power for generations. Solar's voice was flat, defeated. I should have seen this coming. Finn felt something cold and hard settle in his chest, the same feeling he got before battle. No, we're not letting this happen. Commander, you have no authority here. You're not even supposed to know about internal Astari politics. I don't care about authority. I care about what's right. He moved to the window, tactical mind already working. How long before the council convenes? 3 hours. But the palace is sealed during emergency sessions. No one enters or leaves, unless they have diplomatic immunity. Finn turned back to her. As Earth's official envoy, I have the right to address the council on matters affecting interstellar relations. You'd risk everything? Your career, your standing with Earth, possibly your freedom? For what? For the principle that no one should be forced into anything against their will. Not even for the greater good. Not even for species survival. He paused. And for a friend who deserves better than what's being done to her. Solar stared at him for a long moment, then moved to a wall panel and began typing rapidly. If we're going to do this, we need allies. Elder Thaxis has always been more moderate than the others. And Counselor Lyral opposed the protocols initially, though she's been silent lately. What about your people? The citizens? Solar laughed bitterly. They don't get a vote. The council decides, the people obey. That's how it's been for centuries. Maybe it's time that changed. Revolution, Commander. That's a dangerous path. So, is extinction. So is slavery dressed up as duty. Solar finished her communication and turned to him. I've sent messages to Thaxis and Lyral. Whether they'll help remains to be seen. But Commander, Finn, I need you to understand what you're risking. The Council could declare you a hostile agent. Earth would be obligated to recall you, possibly prosecute you. I understand. Do you? Because once we walk into that chamber, there's no going back. You'll be choosing sides in an internal Estari matter. Choosing my side against Earth's interests. Finn met her gaze steadily. I already chose sides when I showed you those classified orders. The only question now is whether we fight or surrender. You military types, Solar said, but there was warmth in her voice. Always reducing everything to battlefield terms. Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes the battlefield is a council chamber instead of open space, but the principles are the same. You identify what's worth fighting for, and you hold the line. Solar was quiet for a moment, then moved to an ornate cabinet and withdrew 2 items, a ceremonial dagger that pulsed with inner light, and a data crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. The dagger is the symbol of my royal line, she explained. Carrying it into the council chamber signals my intent to invoke ancient rites of challenge. The crystal contains something else, the complete technical specifications for our quantum jump drive technology. Finn's breath caught. Solar, if we fail tonight, if they force me into this arrangement, I want you to have this. Take it back to Earth. At least then some good will come from all of this. I can't accept that. The technology is your people's greatest asset, and I'm choosing to share it. My choice, freely made. The first truly free choice I've had in years. She pressed the crystal into his hand. Besides, Earth isn't the only power that would benefit. Share it with everyone. The Vegan Alliance, the Outer Rim Coalition, even the Rigel Empire. Let the galaxy leap forward together. Finn closed his fingers around the crystal, feeling the weight of what she was entrusting to him. Why? Because you saw me as a person first. Because you were willing to sacrifice everything for the principle of choice. Because maybe, just maybe, if the technology is freely shared, my people's legacy becomes something more than a bargaining chip in extinction politics. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Messages flew back and forth as Solar worked to build support among moderate council members. Finn reviewed Estari legal codes, looking for precedents they could use. Neither spoke about what would happen if they failed. As they prepared to leave for the council chambers, Finn found himself checking his sidearm, an automatic response to impending conflict. You won't need that, Solar said softly. Estari politics are bloodless. We prefer to destroy each other with words and laws. Old habits, Finn replied, leaving the weapon behind. Though I have to say, I prefer enemies I can shoot at. At least then you know where you stand. They took Solar's private transport through the empty streets. The city's bioluminescent architecture pulsed dimly in the eternal twilight, like the fading heartbeat of a dying organism. As they neared the council complex, other transports became visible. Council members arriving for the emergency session. There, Solar pointed to a figure in elaborate robes stepping from a transport. Councillor Vex, the architect of tonight's vote. Finn studied the man, tall even for an Estari, with skin patterns that spoke of ancient lineage and eyes that held the cold calculation of a career politician. He looks exactly like someone who would force a woman into marriage with his son. His son is worse. Crix Vex, brilliant scientist, terrible person. He's already published papers on optimizing Estari genetic diversity through selective breeding programs. I'm just the first phase of his grand experiment. Charming. The council complex rose before them like a crystalline mountain, its faceted surfaces reflecting the light of Estari Prime's 3 moons. Guards in ceremonial armor stood at attention as Solar's transport approached the main entrance. Lady Solar, one guard said, his harmonics conveying surprise. The emergency session is closed to all but council members. I invoke the right of challenge, Solar replied, raising the ceremonial dagger. Its light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. As last of the royal line, I claim my voice in matters of succession. The guards exchanged glances. This was clearly not what they had expected. After a moment's hesitation, they stepped aside. The council chamber was a vast, spherical room with the members' seats arranged in ascending tiers. At its center, a holographic display showed star maps and population statistics, the cold mathematics of extinction. Most of the 21 council members were already present, their robes glowing with the soft phosphorescence of rank. Conversation died as Solar entered, followed by Finn. Counselor Vex half rose from his seat, his patterns flashing with indignation. Lady Solar, this is a closed session, and you bring an outsider. Commander Graves is Earth's official envoy, Solar interrupted, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. He has diplomatic standing in any matter affecting interstellar relations, unless the Council intends to sever ties with Earth. The human's presence is irregular, Elder Thaxis said carefully from his position as council chair, but not technically illegal. Lady Solar, why have you invoked challenge? Solar moved to the center of the chamber, her dagger held high. Because this council prepares to vote on my future without my consent. Because you would rob me of the fundamental right of choice in the name of species survival. Because I refuse to be reduced to breeding stock, no matter how noble you paint the cause. Dramatic words, Vex sneered. But drama won't save our species. You've had 18 chances to choose a mate. Your selfishness endangers us all. Selfishness. Solar's voice carried a dangerous edge. I've dedicated my life to our people. I've submitted to every test, every examination, every humiliating medical procedure your scientists demanded. I paraded myself before suitors like a prize animal at auction. And now, because I refuse to bind myself to someone I neither love nor respect, you name me selfish. Love is a luxury we can no longer afford. Another counselor interjected. The protocols exist for precisely this situation. The protocols are ancient relics from a darker time. Counselor Lyral spoke up, surprising everyone. We abandoned forced marriages centuries ago, for good reason. Desperate times require desperate measures, Vex countered. My son offers the best genetic match. The projections show. Your son offers you political advantage, Solar shot back. Nothing more. The argument spiraled from there, with counselors taking sides and voices rising in harmonics that made the chamber ring like a demented orchestra. Finn watched it all, studying the dynamics, waiting for his moment. It came when Vex made a tactical error. The human knows nothing of our ways, Vex said dismissively. His presence here is meaningless. Earth sent him to acquire our technology through seduction. He failed, as all the others failed. Why should we listen to anything he says? Finn stepped forward. You're right, Counselor. Earth did send me for your technology. Would you like to know what my orders were if Lady Solar refused me? The chamber fell silent. Commander, Elder Thaxis said warningly. Consider your words carefully. I have, Elder. Finn pulled out his datapad and projected his classified orders for all to see. Covert scanning, industrial espionage, theft of your most guarded secrets. That's what Earth sent me to do. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several counselors rose from their seats in outrage. But I'm not doing it, Finn continued. Instead, I'm standing here telling you the truth. Because what you're about to do to Lady Solar is worse than anything my government planned. At least we were honest about her theft. You're dressing yours up as duty and calling it moral. How dare you, Vex began. I dare because someone has to. You're about to force a brilliant, capable person into a life she doesn't want, with a man she doesn't love, for a future she never chose. You're stealing her autonomy and calling it necessity. In my world, we have a word for that, slavery. The chamber erupted. Counselors shouted in multiple harmonics, creating a cacophony that made the walls themselves vibrate. Through it all, Solar stood silent at the center, her eyes locked on Finn's. Elder Thaxis finally restored order, his aged voice carrying surprising authority. Commander Graves raises uncomfortable questions, but the law is clear. If Lady Solar cannot choose, we must choose for her. Then change the law, Finn said simply. Change the, Vex sputtered. Thousands of years of precedent. Thousands of years of precedent won't matter when your species is extinct. But neither will forcing Lady Solar into a loveless marriage cure what's really killing you. And what is that, human? Finn looked around the chamber, meeting each counselor's gaze. Rigidity, inflexibility, the inability to adapt. You're so focused on preserving what was it you can't imagine what could be. He turned to the holographic display and manipulated the controls, bringing up population projections. Your own data shows the problem. Even if Lady Solar bears children, many children, the genetic bottleneck is too severe. Without new DNA sources, your species faces catastrophic inbreeding within 3 generations. Which is why the breeding programs, Crix Vex, began from the gallery. Won't work, Finn cut him off. I've seen these models before. The mathematics of extinction. You need genetic diversity, not just quantity. And where do you propose we find this diversity? Elder Thaxis asked. We are the last. Finn smiled grimly. No, you're not. He manipulated the display again, pulling up classified Earth intelligence files. The Andromeda Survey. Deep space exploration from 50 years ago. They found something in the Perseus arm. Ruins of an Estari colony ship, perfectly preserved in the void. The chamber went deathly silent. The ship's biobanks were intact. Finn continued. Genetic samples from over 1 million Estari colonists. Enough diversity to restart your entire species. Earth has known about it for decades. Impossible, Vex whispered. Very possible. But Earth classified the discovery, kept it as a bargaining chip for exactly this situation. Another tool to force your compliance. Solar stared at him. You're destroying your own government's leverage. Why? Because it's right. Because information like this shouldn't be hidden. Because maybe, just maybe, if we stop playing games with each other's survival, we can find better solutions. He pulled out the data Crystal Solar had given him earlier. Lady Solar entrusted me with your jump drive technology. Freely given, not stolen or coerced. Il propose à trade. Real partnership instead of extortion. The location of the colony ship for the jump drive specs. Both species benefit. Both move forward. And Lady Solar? Elder Thaxis asked quietly. Makes her own choices. Marries. Whom she wants when she wants. Or doesn't marry at all. Her life, her decision. The political calculus in the room shifted like iron filings around a magnet. Even Vex seemed uncertain now. The promise of genetic salvation changed everything. It was Counselor Lyral who broke the deadlock. I motioned to table the emergency propagation protocols pending verification of Commander Graves' information. Seconded came another voice. This is madness, Vex protested. We're trusting a human who admits his government sent him to spy on us. We're trusting a human who chose truth over orders, Elder Thaxis corrected, who sacrificed his career to prevent an injustice. That's more honor than I've seen in this chamber in years. The vote, when it came, was decisive. 15-6. The protocols were tabled indefinitely. Solar would remain free to choose her own path. As the council session dissolved into heated discussions about colony ships and genetic diversity, Solar approached Finn. You realize what you've done? Earth will brand you a traitor. Probably, but I can live with that. Your Admiral Vega won't forgive this betrayal. He never forgave me for surviving New Singapore anyway. At least now I've earned his hatred. Solar studied him for a long moment, then did something that shocked the entire chamber. She reached out and took his hand. Among the Estari, public touching was reserved for family or bonded pairs. I don't know what happens next, she said softly. Whether your information is real, whether our species can truly be saved. But I know this, you gave me back my choice. That's a debt I can never repay. You already have, Finn replied. You reminded me why I became a soldier in the first place. Not for governments or politics, but to protect people's right to live as they choose. The moment was shattered by alarms shrieking through the complex. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red as security screens activated around the perimeter. What's happening? Solar demanded. A guard rushed in, his ceremonial armor now crackling with active defensive fields. Ships in orbit. Unknown configuration. Refusing communication. Finn moved to the tactical display, his military instincts taking over. 3 vessels, Corvette class. Energy signatures don't match anything in the database. He paused, studying the readings. They're scanning the planet, looking for something. Elder Thaxis joined them at the display. Pirates? Scavengers? No. Too well organized. Military precision. Finn's eyes narrowed. They're homing in on the palace complex. On us. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's main hollow projector flared to life. A figure materialized in the center of the room. Humanoid, but wrong somehow, with features that seemed to shift and blur at the edges. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that made everyone present shudder. People of Astari Prime, it said, I am Krell of the Orion Compact. We have monitored your communications. We know of the colony's ship. We know of your technology. And we know of your vulnerability. Counselor Vex stepped forward, tried to reclaim control. This is a sovereign world. You have no authority. Authority? Krell laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You have 700 males and 1 female. We have a fleet. What authority do you claim? The implications hit everyone simultaneously. The Orion Compact, a confederation of aggressive species from the galaxy's outer rim, have been expanding inward for decades. Planets that refused their protection tended to suffer unfortunate accidents. What do you want? Elder Thaxis asked. Everything, Krell replied simply. Your technology, your resources, your allegiance. And since you've conveniently gathered your entire leadership in one place. The image smiled, revealing too many teeth. Your surrender. The first impact shook the complex like an earthquake. Defensive shields flared as energy weapons pounded the structure from orbit. Chaos erupted as counselors scrambled for emergency exits. The shield generators, Solar said urgently. If they breach the complex. They won't, Finn said grimly. He turned to Elder Thaxis. Your security forces. How many? Palace Guard only. 50 soldiers, ceremonial weapons. We're not a military power, Commander. Another impact. Cracks appeared in the chamber's crystalline walls. The tunnels, Solar said suddenly. The old evacuation routes from the colonial wars. They lead to the ancient defense platforms. Platforms? Finn asked. Automated systems. We mothballed them centuries ago when we embraced pacifism. But if we can reach the control center, then let's move. Finn began issuing orders with the ease of long practice. Elder Thaxis, evacuate the council through the southern exits. Maximum dispersion. Don't give them group targets. Solar, you're with me. We need those defenses online. Commander, Thaxis protested. You have no authority to. I have the authority of someone who's been in combat before. Unless anyone else here has a better idea. Silence answered him. As the complex shuddered under renewed bombardment, Finn led a small group toward the ancient tunnels Solar had mentioned. She guided them through passages that hadn't seen use in generations, their bioluminescent walls flickering with unstable power. These platforms, Finn asked as they ran, what kind of weapons are we talking about? Particle beams, gravitic disruptors, technologies we developed during our expansionist phase before we learned better. And you just left them sitting there? We chose peace, Commander. The platforms were our shame, reminders of what we'd been. Right now, they might be your salvation. They emerged from the tunnels into a control center that looked like it had been frozen in time. Ancient consoles flickered with standby lights, waiting for commands that hadn't come in centuries. Solar moved to the primary control station, her fingers dancing over interfaces that responded to her genetic markers. The systems are intact, but the power cores need initialization. It'll take time. More explosions echoed from above. The Orion ships were concentrating their fire now, trying to punch through the palace shields before reinforcements could arrive. How much time? Finn asked. 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if I bypass the safety protocols. Finn checked his tactical display. We don't have 15 minutes. Those shields are failing. As if to emphasize his point, Krell's image appeared on the control center's main screen. Lady Solar, I'm disappointed. Here I thought we could be civilized about this. Civilized? Solar didn't look up from her work. You're bombing a diplomatic complex. I'm encouraging cooperation. Your council is being stubborn about surrender terms. Perhaps you'll be more reasonable. After all, you're the real prize here. Finn stepped forward. She's not a prize. She's not property. And she's definitely not going with you. Krell focused on him for the first time. Ah, the human. Commander Graves, isn't it? Your Admiral Vega sends his regards. Finn felt his blood freeze. What? Oh, didn't you know? Your government has been most helpful. They alerted us to the situation here. Suggested we might find opportunities in exchange for certain considerations, of course. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Earth hadn't just sent him to steal technology. They'd arranged for backup plans within backup plans. You're lying, Finn said. Am I? Krell gestured, and another display activated. Admiral Vega's face appeared, his expression cold and calculating. Commander Graves, the recording began. If you're seeing this, you've failed in your mission. The Orion Compact has been briefed on the situation. They'll secure our objectives through other means. Your duty now is to step aside and let them work. The recording cut off, leaving silence in its wake. You see, Krell said smoothly, your own people sold you out. Sold her out. All that moral grandstanding in the council chamber. And for what? Earth gets what it wants either way. Finn felt something fundamental shift inside him. 20 years of service. 20 years of following orders, believing in the chain of command, trusting that his government ultimately served humanity's best interests. All of it crumbling in the face of this casual betrayal. Commander? Solar's voice was soft. I'm sorry. Don't be. Finn's voice hardened with resolve. They made their choice. Now I make mine. He turned back to Krell's image. Tell me something. What exactly did Earth promise you? The jump drive technology, of course. And certain biological samples. It seems your xenobiologists are very interested in Estari reproductive genetics. Finn felt sick. They weren't just stealing technology, they were planning to experiment on Solar's people like lab specimens. 15% initialization, Solar reported. The platforms are responding, but slowly. Your defenses won't save you, Krell said confidently. My ships are already in optimal firing positions. By the time those relics power up, your shields will be gone and this complex will be rubble. Finn studied the tactical display, his mind racing. 3 corvettes in high orbit, positioned for maximum bombardment coverage. Professional deployment, but also predictable. Military minds often fell into patterns, and Finn had spent 20 years learning to exploit those patterns. Solar, he said quietly, those platforms. Can they be fired manually? Individual targeting instead of automated systems. She glanced at him. Theoretically, but the targeting calculations would be incredibly complex. I need to do what I've been trained for my whole life. Finn moved to the weapons console. Keep initializing. I'll handle the rest. His fingers flew over the controls, pulling up targeting solutions that hadn't been used in centuries. The math was complex, but the principles were eternal. Angle of attack, energy dispersion, gravitational effects. Physics didn't change just because the weapons were alien. 25%, Solar reported. On screen, Krell frowned. What are you doing, Commander? My job, just not for the people who sent me. The first platform reached minimal power. Finn didn't wait for full initialization. He triggered a manual firing sequence, sending a focused particle beam into space. It missed the lead corvette by kilometers. Krell laughed. Admirable effort, but those platforms haven't been maintained in. The beam, deflected by Astari Prime's magnetic field exactly as Finn had calculated, curved back and struck the corvette's engine assembly. Secondary explosions cascaded through the ship's power grid. Impossible, Krell snarled. Improbable, Finn corrected, already calculating the next shot. But not impossible. Your formation is textbook Orion Compact, standard deployment. I've studied it for years. 2 more platforms reached firing capability. Finn triggered them simultaneously, using gravitational lensing effects to bend the beams around planetary curvature. 1 corvette lost shields, the other took direct hits to its weapons array. All units, evasive action. Krell commanded. Random patterns. But random patterns in orbital mechanics weren't truly random. They were constrained by physics and fuel limitations. Finn had learned to predict chaos during the Jupiter insurgency. He fired again, leading his targets like a hunter anticipating prey. 60% initialization, Solar called out. Commander, how are you doing this? 20 years of studying combat patterns. Every species has habits. Every commander has tells. Another hit. The damaged corvette's orbit began to decay. Krell's aggressive but orthodox. He thinks in straight lines. All ships retreat to secondary positions. Krell's image flickered as his command ship took hits. Regroup 4. The transmission cut off as more platforms came online. Solar had managed to restore 70% of the defense grid, and Finn used every weapon like an extension of his will. Beams crossed and recrossed in space, creating a lethal web that the Orion ships couldn't avoid. Within minutes, one corvette was breaking up in Astari Prime's atmosphere. Another had jumped to hyperspace, trailing debris, and Krell's command ship hung powerless in orbit, its weapons destroyed. This is Commander Graves to Orion vessels, Finn broadcast. Your shields are down, your weapons are gone, and I have a full planetary defense grid locked onto your positions. Surrender or be destroyed. The response came not from Krell, but from his second-in-command. Orion forces standing down. Repeat, standing down. Requesting terms. Terms are simple, Finn replied. You leave. Now. And you tell everyone, Astari Prime is under protection. Whose protection? The voice asked. Earth's. Finn looked at Solar, who nodded slowly. No, he said. Mine. The remaining Orion ships limped out of the system, leaving wreckage in orbit as testament to their defeat. As the immediate danger passed, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Elder Thaxis's voice crackled over the communication system. Commander Graves, Lady Solar, are you safe? Safe, Solar confirmed. The attack has been repelled. Thanks to Commander Graves, Thaxis replied. Though I fear the cost of this victory may be higher than we know. He was right. Within hours, Earth's diplomatic corps delivered Finn's official censure. Court-martial proceedings would begin immediately. He was stripped of rank, branded a traitor, and marked for arrest the moment he left Astari space. Finn stood in the ruins of the council chamber, reading the charges on his datapad. 20 years of service reduced to a criminal record. I'm sorry, Solar said, joining him among the debris. You saved us and lost everything. Did I? Finn looked around the damaged chamber. I lost a career built on following orders I no longer believe in. I lost a government that would sell out allies for technological advantage. That's not everything. That's just clearing away the wreckage. What will you do now? Finn was quiet for a long moment. I honestly don't know. For 20 years, the military gave me purpose. Now, he shrugged. Now I need to find a new purpose. I might have a suggestion, Elder Thaxis said, entering the chamber with several other council members. The events of today have shown us our vulnerability. We've hidden behind pacifism while the galaxy grew more dangerous. We need to rebuild our defenses, retrain our guards, prepare for future threats. And Finn asked, and we need someone to lead that effort. Someone with combat experience, tactical knowledge, and proven loyalty to Astari interests. Thaxis smiled slightly. The position comes with citizenship, full diplomatic immunity, and a chance to build something new. Finn looked at Solar. What do you think? I think, she said carefully, that you've already proven you'll protect us. I think Earth's loss could be our gain. And I think, she paused, then continued more quietly, I think I'd like to learn more about this strange human who sacrificed everything for the principle of choice. The offer hung in the air like a bridge between worlds. Finn thought about Earth, about the life he was leaving behind, about the uncertain future ahead. Then he looked at Solar, brilliant, fierce, finally free, and made his choice. I accept, he said simply. The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity. True to his word, Finn threw himself into rebuilding Astari Prime's defenses. He trained their guards in modern combat techniques, upgraded their sensor networks, and established diplomatic contacts with systems that had previously ignored the dying world. The colony ship's location proved accurate. Teams of Astari scientists, escorted by Finn's newly trained security forces, successfully recovered the genetic samples. The data offered hope for the first time in generations. Not just survival, but genuine recovery. Through it all, Finn and Solar worked together. What began as mutual respect deepened into friendship, then something more. It wasn't the forced courtship of political necessity or the desperate grasping of extinction's edge. It was two people finding each other across the void between species, building trust one conversation at a time. Earth, predictably, was furious. Admiral Vega's communications grew increasingly threatening until Solar revealed that she had recorded every aspect of Earth's betrayal. The secret orders, the deal with the Orion Compact, the plans for biological exploitation. Faced with potential galactic scandal, Earth quietly dropped all charges against Finn and formally recognized his Astari citizenship. One evening, 6 months after the Orion attack, Finn found Solar in the Memorial Plaza where they'd first truly talked. The light sculptures of the dead glowed softly in the eternal twilight, but now they seemed less like ghosts and more like guardians watching over the living. The council met today, Solar said without turning around. They've officially rescinded the emergency propagation protocols. Permanently. No Astari will ever be forced into marriage again. That's wonderful, Finn said, joining her among the memorials. They also did something else. She finally turned to face him. They approved the use of the recovered genetic samples for artificial gestation. The first new Astari in a generation will be born within the year. Not from me, not from forced pairings, but from science and choice. So the species will survive. Yes, without sacrificing anyone's autonomy. She smiled. It's a better solution than anyone imagined, including me. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the memorial lights pulse with remembered life. Finally, Solar spoke again. You know what this means, don't you? I'm no longer the last female. Soon there will be others. Many others. The burden I've carried. It's lifting. How does that feel? Terrifying, she admitted. For years, my identity has been tied to being the last. The repository of hope. The walking womb. Now I have to figure out who I am without all of that. I might be able to help with that, Finn said. I've had some experience with identity crisis lately. Solar laughed. That crystal bell sound that never failed to lift his spirits. Yes, I suppose you have. Any advice? Start with what you know is true. Build from there. And what do I know is true? Finn considered the question. You're a xenobiologist who loves ancient poetry. You have questionable taste in fermented beverages. You're stubborn enough to face down an entire council, but compassionate enough to forgive a spy sent to steal from you. You're someone who values choice above comfort and principles above peace. He paused. And you're someone I've come to care about more than I probably should. Solar stepped closer to him. That last part. Tell me more about that. It's complicated, Finn said. I'm still technically an alien. Different species, different biology, different everything. The council might not force you to choose anymore, but they probably have opinions about who you should choose. The council's opinions matter less to me every day. She reached out and took his hand, intertwining their fingers. Besides, didn't someone once tell me that choice was sacred? That what matters is deciding what you can live with. Sounds like a wise person. He has his moments. Solar's expression grew serious. Finn, I need you to understand. I'm not choosing you because you saved me, or because you're safe, or because you're conveniently here. If I choose you, if we choose each other, it has to be real. I know, Finn said, and I need you to understand that I'm not here because I have nowhere else to go. Earth would take me back now. Other worlds have made offers. I'm here because this feels like where I belong. With you, with your people, building something new instead of following old patterns. The human and the last Astari female, Solar mused. The poets will have a field day with this story. Former last female, Finn corrected. And I thought you liked poetry. I do, but I prefer making history to reading about it. As if on cue, The sky above them erupted in color. The aurora stellaris, a phenomenon that occurred when charged particles from the dying sun interacted with a starry prime's magnetosphere, painted the heavens in sheets of green and gold and impossible purple. It was beautiful and temporary, a reminder that even dying things could create moments of transcendent beauty. The old texts say the aurora appears at moments of great change, Suitor said, her face tilted toward the light show. The end of one thing, the beginning of another. Sounds appropriate. She turned back to him, decision clear in her eyes. Ask me. Ask you what? What you've been wanting to ask for weeks now. What I've been waiting to hear. Finn took a deep breath. 20 years of military discipline hadn't prepared him for this moment. Suitor, Lyra, would you consider building a life with me? Not because of duty or politics or species survival, but because, yes, she interrupted, yes to all of it. Yes to the uncertainty and the complexity and the inevitable challenges. Yes to learning each other's languages properly and figuring out cross-species compatibility and dealing with whatever the galaxy throws at us next. Yes, because I choose you, Finn Graves. Freely and completely. The kiss that followed was awkward and perfect, two beings from different worlds finding a way to bridge the gap between them. Above them, the aurora stellaris blazed brighter, as if the universe itself celebrated the moment when choice triumphed over coercion, when love transcended species, when two people decided that some things were worth the risk. In the years that followed, their story became legend. Not the sanitized version Earth tried to promote, heroic humans saves dying species, or the romanticized tale the Estari poets crafted, star-crossed lovers unite two civilizations. The real story was both simpler and more profound. Two people who chose each other in defiance of expectation, who built a partnership based on respect rather than necessity, who proved that the greatest adventures begin when we stop following scripts and start writing our own stories. The Estari species did recover, thanks to the genetic samples and advances in reproductive technology. Suitor had children, by choice, with Finn, creating the galaxy's first human Estari hybrids. Their daughter would one day command the joint fleet that finally brought lasting peace to the sector, but that's another story. Finn never returned to Earth, though he did reconcile with his sister and maintained contact with friends who understood his choice. He served as Astari Prime's defense minister for 30 years, transforming their military from a ceremonial guard into a force that commanded respect throughout the galaxy. More importantly, he helped establish the Autonomous Choice Protocol, a treaty signed by dozens of worlds guaranteeing that no sentient being could be forced into reproductive servitude, regardless of species survival concerns. Suitor continued her work as a xenobiologist, eventually making breakthroughs in cross-species genetics that revolutionized medicine throughout known space. She also served multiple terms on the reformed Estari Council, championing policies that balance tradition with progress, survival with dignity. But their greatest achievement wasn't measured in treaties or scientific papers. It was in the quiet moments, shared dinners where they still debated philosophy, walks through the Crystal Garden where they'd first truly seen each other, nights spent watching the aurora stellaris paint impossible colors across alien skies. They proved that love wasn't bound by biology or politics, that choice was indeed sacred, and that sometimes the best way to save a species was to save a single person's right to decide their own fate. The Memorial Plaza remained, its light sculptures still glowing in eternal remembrance. But now children played among the holograms, human children, Estari children, hybrid children who carried the best of both species. The ghosts of the past had become guardians of the future, and in their light, new stories began. As for the dying sun that had started it all, it continued its slow decline, as stars do. But the Estari had learned something important. Endings weren't just about loss. They were about transformation, about the choices we make when faced with the inevitable, about the love we dare to embrace even as the universe changes around us. And sometimes, just sometimes, they were about new beginnings disguised as final chapters, waiting for someone brave enough to turn the page. The last entry in Finn's personal journal, found years later among his effects, perhaps said it best. 20 years ago, I thought I knew what duty meant. Orders followed. Missions completed. Chains of command respected. I was wrong. Real duty isn't about following orders. It's about knowing when to break them. It's about protecting what matters, even when the cost is everything you thought you were. It's about choosing love over fear, principle over expedience, the hard right over the easy wrong. I lost a career, but gained a purpose. I betrayed a government, but served humanity's better angels. I was sent to save a species through conquest and instead help them save themselves through choice. In the end, we are not measured by the orders we follow, but by the stands we take. Love finds a way. Choice matters. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply saying no to those who would steal another's tomorrow for their own today. The journal entry was dated on the anniversary of the day he first met Solar, when a reluctant soldier and a defiant survivor looked across the void between species and saw not difference, but possibility. It remains, to this day, required reading at Earth's diplomatic academy. A reminder that the greatest bridges between worlds are built not by those who follow the map, but by those brave enough to chart a new course entirely.